Yet again, the Trump administration is helping Russia by asking Ukraine to stop bombing a Russian port where a Russian oil company makes money. This is ridiculous. And you know what? They're using this promise of maybe giving a few Patriot interceptors, maybe in some point in the future that nobody knows what the hell that is. Let me give you a news flash. They're not going to give any Patriots at any time. And it just shows they breadcrumb a little amount of military aid, say they might give it in order to hurt Ukraine's war effort. That's what this is. Benefiting, a couple American oil companies that are doing business with Russia. Don't know how that's possibly legal. If it is legal, it should not be. And they do nothing to talk about Russia bombing civilians, Russia bombing, Odessa, Russia bombing ports that provide, grain from Ukrainian farmers to places like Africa that really need it, especially given the fertilizer shortages caused by what? Trump's stupid war in Iran. So, yet again, oil companies need to be protected. Putin's money and cash flow are something that, Trump spends all his time caring about. But when it comes to people in Africa, civilians in Ukraine, nobody gives a shit in America, at least in the halls of power. It's pathetic.
The U.S. has reportedly spent more money on its war in Iran than it would cost to rebuild Gaza. Trump's 2026 budget proposal cuts $700 million from the National Park Service. That's about what it costs to fund 20 hours of the disastrous Iran war. How are you going to pay for Medicare for all? I don't know. How did we pay for a war in Iran that costs $1 billion a day? Weird how the money is always there for bombs and never there for hospitals. And now the administration is requesting more money. They've already spent $37 billion according to Hegseth, although experts think that number is actually over $100 billion by now. And now they want $67 billion more. As you can imagine, Congress people's phones are blowing up over this. They're under a lot of pressure to stop it. Let's add to the ruckus. I have an LINK in my bio for you, where you can sign on to a short message pre-written for you about stopping funding for this. This is Win Without Wars petition, and there's a slot for zip codes because that determines who your member of Congress is. Have fun yelling. See you at the link in my bio. Okay, bye.
Wait a minute. Let me make sure I have this right. Let me make sure I got this. Trump shifts to low-keying it with Iran as Strait of Hormuz nears a deal. Low-keying it. Who says that? Oh, I don't recall General Patton ever saying, we're going to low-key it. I don't remember that. Yeah, Ulysses S. Grant? Never remember him saying, what, we're just gonna low-key it for right now against the South. As a matter of fact, I do remember the last general, the last military man to say that. The last military man to say that was Custard. Yeah, Custard said, "We're just gonna low key it with the Indians." I don't think that worked out very well. Do you? In fact, I think it worked out really bad. But I can't imagine being a military family and having people at risk and people getting injured and losing their lives. And the president says, we're going to low key it. I can't even imagine.
Massive news. Donald Trump is preparing to pay Iran $300 billion to bring an end to this war. Now, this comes to us from the New York Times, who is talking to sources close to the negotiations, who say that Donald Trump is preparing a $300 billion investment fund for Iran if they can come to terms for a final agreement. That is the sum that Donald Trump is paying, and it is massive. Now, it would be spun as a reconstruction fund and an international investment. So Donald Trump doesn't have to say he is directly paying them. Now, this would be on top of $24 billion of unfrozen assets that Iran would receive. And that money would go through Qatar. So again, Donald Trump doesn't have to look like he's paying it out. Now, this is what I believe, that we have a deal to bring this war to an end. The deal is in place. Donald Trump just can't bring himself to announce it because it is too embarrassing. He is working overtime right now to try to find ways to change the language, to spin the announcement so it doesn't look like an embarrassment. Iran fought America to a stalemate. They hold more cards, and it's all because of Donald Trump.
You're not going to believe this. Check this out. Bear with me. Listen to the whole thing. Bear with me. This is nuts. So Donald Trump said that he had agreed to a 10-point plan which was workable. So it's not finalized, but it's workable. Iranian state television have just announced that 8 of the points have been agreed by President Trump. Now, that's what they're saying. But remember, Trump said that it's workable. So let me tell you what the 8 points from the 10-point plan are so far that Donald Trump has agreed to. And let me know what you think about this in the comments. Number 1, guarantee not to repeat aggression against Iran. The continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. Acceptance of uranium enrichment. Lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions. Termination of all resolutions, that means in regards to the United Nations and also the International Atomic Energy Board. Payment of compensation to Iran. Donald Trump has agreed to compensate Iran for the war. Withdrawal of US combat forces from the region, which is massive and is going to have US allies shaking in their boots right now. And the cessation of war on all fronts, including against the Islamic resistance in Lebanon. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. The source of this is the BBC.
To all my Republicans, I need y'all to come to the front for a moment because there's something I need to break down like Windex on glass. First and foremost, I remember in the Obama administration, Donald Trump and Republicans railroading the Iran nuclear deal because there was this belief that the Iran nuclear deal would be giving Iran $1.7 billion in cash. $1.7 billion that Donald Trump believed would fund terrorist organizations, Iran's military, and their nuclear facilities. It was one of the main reasons why Republicans wanted the Iran nuclear deal torn to shreds in Donald Trump's first administration, which Donald Trump did. But here we are in 2026 at war with the Iranians. And you know what Donald Trump did? He eased the sanctions on Iran's ability to ship their oil. Iran's economy, its GDP, 23% of it comes from oil sales. That's about $30 to $50 billion Iran could make annually. And we've just eased sanctions on one of the key functions of Iran's economy. That money is now being spent to fund their military, to fund terrorist organizations, and to kill the very troops that we have in the Middle East right now. So we wanted to railroad Obama for simply unfreezing assets that were already Iran's. We wanted to railroad him, but we don't have shit to say about Donald Trump easing sanctions on Iran's ability to ship its oil, receiving $30 to $50 billion for God knows how long in the midst of a war with Iran. You cannot make this shit up.
So Donald Trump intends to walk away from a long-term nuclear deal with Iran if they just promise to fully open the Strait of Hormuz. It seems that Iran wants a high price to pass the Strait of Hormuz, but additionally, they are now seeking billions of dollars of payments from the U.S. as well as removal of U.S. troops from the region to rebuild their country. So, folks, at this point, it's not even about a nuclear deal with Iran. That's not even what we're talking about. He is willing to literally walk away from any expectation. He just wants the Strait open. So you really have to come to the realization that we actually went into this conflict for absolutely no reason. None at all. None at all. None at all. We were lied again. They said, hey, we're going to regime change. Nothing happened. We're going to open the strait. Still not open. We're going to get them into a nuclear deal better than Obama's deal. Not happening. Only thing that we are now negotiating is opening the Strait of Hormuz, which, mind you, folks, was open before we did this.
All right, let me see if I can get this straight. The U.S. launches a war on Iran. Oil prices spike because refineries are being hit and shipping lanes are being shut down. And Washington scrambles to try to bring these same oil prices back down. And they're trying to think of ideas, and they come up with this amazing idea, ironically, to calm the markets. The U.S. is now reportedly agreeing to allow Russia to sell more oil on the market, which means Russia, the same country that we have been opposing in the war in Ukraine for the past years, the country that we have sanctioned because of its war in Ukraine, is now allowed to pump more oil and to bring in more money into its war chest. I wonder what Russia's going to do with that money. I think, I could be wrong, but I think they may use it to continue the war in Ukraine. And here's actually where it gets even more troubling. There is reporting to suggest that Russia is providing intelligence to Iran, and Iran is using that intelligence to target American assets and our allies in the region. So I just want you to think about this irony here for a moment. The U.S. launches a war against Iran, oil prices go up. To try to stabilize the prices, the U.S. turns to Russia, which we oppose in the war in Ukraine, and says to them, you can start selling your oil again on the market to help drive the prices down for us and our consumers. You're allowed to make money off of it. That money you can use to fund your war in Ukraine against us. But at the same time, you are providing intelligence to the Iranians, which they are using to attack our assets in the region and our allies, which is driving the price of oil up, which makes us turn to the Russians to try to lower the prices. I don't know if the U.S. and Israel thought this through, but none of this actually makes sense. This is just absurd on every level.
Trump saves Iran is not clickbait. Here's the story. 700 years ago, Ibn Khaldun identified a historical pattern that keeps regimes in power. It's a common vision or a bond, but that only lasts when there's an external enemy. And once the enemy is removed, the nation destroys itself from the inside. So before Trump and Netanyahu attacked, the Iranian regime was losing power. The largest protest since the 1979 revolution in over 200 cities. The rial was collapsing. Millions of educated young Iranians were locked out of power with no future. The revolutionary generation that built the regime was aging out. The new generation was demanding something better. And then the US and Israel attacked, and Iran united. Even the opposition leader, Reza Pahlavi, told supporters, stay home, and the protests stopped. U.S. intelligence confirms the regime is uniting and strengthening. The attack gave the regime exactly what it needed, a foreign enemy to unite against. Polymarket gives Iran's government an 80% chance of surviving through 2026, but I think they're wrong. And I have the full breakdown on Substack and Instagram for subscribers. Link is in the bio.
What if I told you that while America and Iran are sitting at the negotiating table, talking about peace, talking about nuclear limits, Iran just quietly signed a $25 billion deal to build more nuclear infrastructure? Not with a rogue state, not in secret, with Russia. And here's the kicker. Nobody in Washington has confirmed whether they even know about it. This isn't a movie plot. This isn't a leak. This happened this week. And if you don't understand why this changes everything, stick with me, because by the end of this video, you will. Let's break down exactly what was signed. Iran's ambassador to Russia, Kazim Jalali, stood up at a conference in Moscow in front of senior officials and nuclear experts from both countries and announced what he called the most extensive nuclear cooperation project ever launched between Iran and Russia. $25 billion. The centerpiece? A brand new facility called the Hormuz nuclear power plant, being built in cooperation with Rosatom, Russia's state nuclear energy giant. This is the same Rosatom that operates nuclear projects across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. These guys don't mess around. But it doesn't stop there. The deal also covers the expansion of the Bushehr nuclear power plant, Iran's only currently operational nuclear station, adding a second and third reactor. It includes plans for small-scale nuclear power plants. And it even covers joint production of radiopharmaceuticals, that's nuclear medicine used in cancer treatment and diagnostics. Iran's ambassador proudly stated that Iran now produces 70 radiopharmaceutical products, and in 2025 ranked among the world's top 3 producers. On paper, Sounds peaceful. But here's where it gets...
Okay, just watch this. Donald Trump is fully surrendering to Iran right now, waving the white flag, and no longer even demanding a deal with the United States, just deal, deal, deal. He's telling Iran to finalize a Strait of Hormuz arrangement with Oman in 24 hours or face decapitation, while Iran has been pushing exactly that deal to seize total control over inbound traffic and veto power on outbound ships. At the same time, Reuters reveals the U.S. has virtually run out of precision strike missiles. Half its Tomahawks gone, leaving America unable to fight anywhere else. Trump has wrecked the Arab security umbrella he promised, and the global U.S. one too, turning the country into another bankrupt Trump casino or dystopian reality show we're trapped in. Rubio pretends ships are sailing and the U.S. is somehow involved. Bessent goes on CNBC to juice the markets with deal tomorrow talk, so Trump and the oligarchs cash in while Americans can't afford groceries. Iran flatly rejects the spin, saying the talks exclude the U.S. and will give Tehran full sovereign authority.
Open the gates of hell. That's what Donald Trump ordered 48 hours ago after American troops were killed in Iran. Now, according to the New York Times, he's quietly backing off, abandoning any further escalation because the U.S. military is running dangerously low on ammunition. The Pentagon's own stockpile of Patriot missile interceptors across the Middle East has been drained, a stockpile that isn't easy or quick to rebuild. Why? Because Iran had already been striking American bases across 5 separate countries: Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Iraq, reportedly destroying hundreds of pieces of American equipment along the way. Radar systems, containerized barracks, and the very interceptor batteries meant to protect American troops on the ground. So Trump tried to save face. He sent the Iraqi prime minister to broker a new deal with Iran directly. Iran's response was blunt. They have zero interest in reviving that old agreement. And their message back was simple: leave the region and there could finally be peace. Even conservative commentators are calling the whole situation, quote, exhausting, pointing out that Trump is the one who walked away from the original Iran nuclear deal in his first term, then broke the replacement agreement he negotiated after that. And here's what should actually make you angry. While American troops sat exposed overseas with dwindling missile defenses, what was Trump actually doing at home? He spent the entire day golfing. He shut his schedule to the press by 6 p.m. No briefings, no questions, nothing at all. Then, at midnight, while the country he leads was quietly retreating from a war it started, he was online demanding Republican senators kill the Senate filibuster to pass something he called the Save America Act, all while insisting affordability is, quote, a word the Democrats made up. And with Netanyahu already set to meet Trump in Washington this coming Tuesday to push new intelligence claims about Iran racing toward nuclear weapons, critics worry the exact same cycle that got the U.S. into this mess is about to start all over again. So let's be clear about what actually happened here. A president who threatened to open the gates of hell just quietly stood down, not because Iran backed off, but because America literally ran out of ammunition to keep going. So is that strength, or is that a country that gambled its own stockpile and lost?
They know Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. That's the only reason they're comfortable attacking them. Because they know Iran cannot attack back with nuclear weaponry. And they arrogantly thought their Iron Dome was going to protect them. But it literally collapsed within 24 hours. A lot of people may have seen earlier videos where a whole bunch of Iran's weapons were being intercepted by the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome, by the way, actually shoots a missile up to intercept and blow up other missiles. But what they didn't get is that Iran was intentionally sending old missiles to wear out, to use up the defense. And once they felt like they had sufficiently worn down the defenses of the Iron Dome, then they started unleashing the heavy duty stuff. And Iran has hypersonic missiles. And I don't know if you've seen one of those on video. It is insane how fast they come in. You're not getting out of the way of a hypersonic missile. You may be able to see some other type of missile up in the air heading your way. You run for the hills. You're not running from a hypersonic missile. As fast as you see it, it's there. It travels faster than the speed of sound. So it hits you before you even hear it coming. They've also unleashed a new type of weaponry that we've never even seen before. Hey Siri, how many missiles does Iran have? It's going to be in the thousands. 3,000 ballistic missiles. They're going to level Israel like a parking lot.